Hello everybody, thank you for joining me for this info session. I'm Pete Malicki and I am the founder of World Monologue Film Festival. So we're here today to talk about the ins and outs of this event, how it all works, to answer any questions if you're thinking about participating, and just to generally fill you in on how it all works. I might start by just giving a quick introduction for those who haven't met me before, and then we'll dive in. I expect we might take about 45 minutes or so. There is quite a lot of information to get through. So I'm just going to say a few words about myself, and then I'm going to play a little video from about the film festival that does some of the work in explaining how things are. So my name's Pete Malicki. I am the managing director of an entertainment company called Undo Redo Entertainment, and we run a portfolio of businesses and projects within the creative industries. Some of you, or many of you watching this, are likely to have found out about World Monologue Film Festival through World Monologue Games, which is a global acting competition. So far in our 2 years of operation, we've had about 5,000 actors register from over 100 countries. We've broadcast over 1,000 different performances in our regional and our global finals. We've had 150,000 viewers. We've had media in 18 countries. It's a pretty epic event. What else do? I run the Monologue project. I'm wearing that on my shirt, which is essentially a script resource and some acting training, believe it or not, around monologues. I run Arts Business Academy, which is another training institution around business skills and career development for creatives. And I run something called Chiefly, the Creative Industry Future Leaders Incubator, which is a professional leadership course and startup incubator here in Sydney. So that's a little bit about me. And like I promised, I'm just going to go straight into playing the little video from World Monologue Film Festival that I made last year. So you would have seen it if you got involved last year, but here it is. World Monologue Film Festival is a unique challenge for filmmakers and actors. Your film must be shot in one continuous take. You can only use one camera, so you can't cut between different takes or angles, etc. It must run for 1 to 2.5 minutes, not 1 second longer or shorter. You can't just put a camera on a tripod and perform in front of it. Now is the winter of our discontent. There needs to be camera movement. You could use a phone or a GoPro and do the same thing, but maybe you want to do something more interesting than a selfie video. There can only be one person on screen. No extras, no silent bodies.
Why did you even ask me to come then?
And no off-screen voices. Shut up. That said, you can have someone help out from off-screen so long as you can't see or hear them. You can do post-production on your film. You could add in effects or graphics as long as it's still one continuous take and you can't edit in any other video footage. Now, you could use any content at all that you want as long as you have the writer's permission if you didn't write it yourself, but you can't talk about coronavirus. Finally, you can have a credit roll that goes for a maximum of 5 seconds, or you could just have the credits integrated into the film itself. We would love to have you involved, so register now as a fan, sponsor, volunteer, judge, or filmmaking team at monologues.com.au/WMFF for World Monologue Film Festival. Okay, I think we're good to go. Is sound speeding? Camera rolling? And action! Okay, that's the little kind of promo video / rules explainer video, and if you didn't cotton on, I'm sure you did. It is made sort of as though it is a World Monologue Film Festival entry, all shot in one continuous take. It took about 70 goes to get that right. It's not as easy as it sounds, what I'm about to run through. So with that done, let's dive on in and let's talk about some rules for the event. Oh dear, what's going on? little live streaming thing. I don't know if you guys saw anything, but anyway, let's talk about the rules, dates, prizes, this, that, and the other. And guys, feel free to leave a question in the chat. If you are watching live, I will cover a lot of things, so I might not answer straight away if I'm going to answer it at some point, or leave a comment if you're watching this later. You can also jump onto our website. The link is in the description, and you can contact us there if you would like to have a specific question answered. Okay, so that said, let's dive in. Now, I will repeat some of what we saw in the video just for the sake of thoroughness. So your film has to be shot in one continuous take. That means you only need one camera. I mean, you could shoot it from two different angles at the same time if you wanted, but you'll only be able to use footage from one of those cameras, so that seems a little bit pointless. You cannot edit that take, by which I mean you have to use the whole take uninterrupted. You can, of course, trim the beginning and trim the end, and you can do post-production stuff on the film, but the footage itself has to be from one continuous take. There has to be camera movement. We did have 1 or 2 entries last year where they just put the camera on the tripod. Unfortunately, if you do that, it is ineligible, and we will not accept it into the festival. I might as well just say here up front that if your film doesn't meet the conditions, it's just marked as ineligible, and unfortunately, it's not going to progress further than that. Now, in terms of the rule which states only one performer is allowed to be on screen, that includes everybody. There's no extras, no silent players who the character is talking to. Don't film it in a public place where there's people in the background. Look, we did have a film, I think, that snuck in. Someone in the distance went by, but you couldn't see it on the small screen. It was only when we broadcasted in the cinema that anyone, well, me, noticed that person. So, like, if that happens, it's probably not the end of the world, but as a general rule, if there is more than one person, it will be disqualified. So that's totally up to our discretion. Just don't risk it. Make sure there is no one in the background. Because again, if it's done in a street or at a playing field or something like that, it's going to be disqualified. In terms of doing voiceovers, you can add a voiceover, that's fine, but it's only one actor. So you can't have multiple actors doing voices. You can't have someone off camera doing the only voice if the actor on camera doesn't have any dialogue. You can have basically a voiceover of the same character doing their own thoughts. You can't have one actor doing 5 different voices, 5 different characters' voices in the voiceover. Although, of course, you could get a talented actor who can do multiple voices and sound like different people. That is against the spirit of the event. So essentially, it's not only one actor, but it's also one character. Again, having a voiceover is fine. We did have a couple of films that did that. They were silent on screen, but they put their voiceover in, and that's okay. But one actor, one character. So you can't edit in any additional video footage. So it has to be just that one continuous take. You can't have another angle coming into a corner or something like that. The time limit, the duration, it must be between 60 seconds and 2.5 minutes. So if it goes for 59 seconds, look, at most we give 1 second of grace for kind of like a rounding error. So say if you put your video on YouTube, sometimes it's off by 1 second. So we'd only give 1 second of grace for that reason, but don't push it. If it's 59 seconds, you're at risk. If it's 58 seconds, it's definitely not going to be accepted. We want to be strict on these requirements because it's fair for everybody. If we allow one video that's 57 seconds, then someone who's 56 seconds gets disqualified. Wouldn't make sense. So we've just drawn firm lines where we have drawn those lines. I talked about the credit roll in that little video. So essentially, if you're using a credit roll, you can add 5 seconds to the end of the video. So that doesn't change the video, the duration of the film, of the actual footage, which still has to be 60 seconds to 2.5 minutes. So if your film goes for 56 seconds and has a 5-second credit roll, that's going to be ineligible because the film itself hasn't gone for 60 seconds. If it goes for 2 minutes and 29 seconds with a 5-second credit roll, that is fine. Essentially, we don't count the credit roll as part of the film, but we do still cap it at 5 seconds. So again, if you want to do a longer credit roll, you can think about integrating it into the film. But you know, it's a very short film. Maybe just keep a nice tight short credit roll. It's probably the easiest thing to do. We did have a film last year where there was a credit roll in the middle of the film, and we did let it through, but I don't think we'd let that same film through again this year because it was quite a long credit roll with nothing else happening, and technically it met the rules, but it's sort of, you know, I think it breached the spirit of the rules, and it was fine because we didn't make it clear. But this year we'll make that clear by saying that if you do have a credit roll that goes during the film, like in the middle or even towards the end, you can't have nothing happening and then like just say someone sitting on screen staring and then come back to the film. If the credit roll itself is the focus, then you know, what's that experience like for the viewer? The viewer's sitting there watching a credit roll which goes for 20 seconds and then the film starts again. I'm worried that I'm sounding like I'm confused or contradicting myself a little bit. So if you're uncertain, just reach out to me. You can reach me via the website or again, comments, etc. That's just the easiest way. If you're uncertain, please get in touch and let me know what your intention is, and I'll be really happy to clarify it. I see a few questions, so let me just have a quick look at these questions and answer those for you. Have yourself as a character, but a voiceover from the same person as another character? Thanks for that question, Zoe. No. So it's one character only as well as one actor only. Alan, I'm glad you're enjoying your single malt. Ali sharing the video, I'll talk about that. There's a submission form on our website, essentially. And David, yes, it is about the actor and the acting and not the credits. But, you know, you get all sorts of submissions in these things. Okay, let me come back to this. So there is a firm rule. Please do not talk about coronavirus or the pandemic. That's been a general rule of World Monologue Games and the film festival. The reason is because it's just dominating the world and everything we talk and think about. Part of the aim of this is just to create, you know, a bit of fun entertainment, whether that means it's a good laugh or it's thought-provoking or whatever. Let's just get away from coronavirus for a few hours. So please don't talk about coronavirus or lockdowns or anything related. We only have one category in this event, so there's only one kind of submission, the 1 to 2.5 minutes. We don't have student categories, we don't have teen categories or anything like that. So just think there's one category essentially. Any language is fine as well. If you're not doing it in English, you probably want to include subtitles. That's fine to include subtitles. I am going to show a couple of the great films that we had from last year's finals at the end of this session. And one of those is, it's not in English, it's in Spanish, I think. And it had English subtitles. So it is advisable because predominantly our audience is English. And look, you can, if you think not being able to understand the dialogue is okay, then look, you won't be disqualified, but subtitles are preferred if you can. In terms of your rights for content, you must provide evidence that you own the rights for anything that you use. So if the script is not yours, if you have not written it originally for this event, if you've found someone else's, like a monologue online, and you want to turn that into your film, you need to get a statement of permission from the copyright holder, the author of that piece. We do ask for this, and if you can't produce it, we will not air your film. This is just standard practice in the industry, and it's also a requirement. We can't air any material where we have not got the rights to use it. We could get our event cancelled, so we can't take that risk. This includes music as well. It includes sound effects, any images that you might display somehow. Just make sure that you have permission for any of the content that is not original yourself. If you've written it yourself, that's no problem. When you ask to provide the evidence, you can just say, this is my own original work. I might as well chuck this in now. We have a lot of scripts on our website on monologues.com.au. You're very welcome to use any of those. There's about 110 or so short monologues that run for around 1 to 2.5 minutes. Feel free to use any of those. You can let me know if you're going to do it if you like, but I am giving you blanket permission. I wrote every single one of those scripts, and I'm very happy to have any of them involved in the event if you would like to use them. So they're all yours. Now, in terms of, what's the word? Can't think of the word, but films that, or premiere status. We are asking that any films submitted have not been made public. So it's fine if you've made them for previous events and submitted them to other film festivals. That's totally fine. But the reason, I'm generally pretty against this idea of wanting premieres, because I think you understand it for the big festivals. They want to show their audiences unique content. But of course, it can be quite limiting to the filmmakers who, end up having to sit on their films for years after they've made them, putting them through the festival circuit. The thing is, with World Monologue Film Festival, these the requirements are quite unique, and we pretty much can make a safe assumption that very few films made actually meet these requirements just by coincidence. So typically you don't have that many one-shot films, and they might not be in the time duration. They might have multiple actors. So we're kind of after films to be made for this event. And that's partly why these conditions exist the way that they do. So having a 1 to 2.5 minute time limit means that it's not a huge production. One continuous take as well means that you can only do one location. So it's all designed to be a film event that's fairly doable for a small crew, or under the current conditions, in Australia here, where we're currently, I'm in Sydney in the state New South Wales. We don't have lockdown, but we've just had the worst day of the pandemic so far here in Australia. So, who knows, maybe we'll have a lockdown in 2 weeks or 2 months or whenever. So it's kind of designed to allow filmmakers to keep creating during these conditions. So having just one camera, small crews, one actor, one location only. It's all kind of designed to be A, doable in these conditions, and B, a little bit different, a little bit of a different challenge. That's a long way of saying, please, no films that have already been made public. That doesn't include being shown in other festivals, like I said, just not made public on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. And once you make your submission to us, please don't share it. Last year we did have a few people do that. They submitted to us and then they shared it on social media before the event. We really don't want that. We want people to actually watch the event, because everybody benefits when that happens. So this year, if you do that, you'll just be disqualified. We didn't have the no premiere rule, premieres only rule last year. We kind of accepted anything that met the conditions, but this year it's premieres only. Excuse me. And guys, just please read the terms and conditions. There are more terms and conditions on the website. Please do read them in case I haven't said anything here. Or again, if you are uncertain, always just reach out to me. I'm really happy to answer. because I'd rather tell you than have to disqualify you. It's always pretty awful, actually, having to disqualify someone's film. I'm running a film festival to give people an opportunity, and when they've put work in and make a mistake, it's against the whole purpose. Okie dokie. So let's talk about prizes. We last year gave $500 Australian cash to the winner of Best Film. We are going to do that again. So $500 cash for the Best Film winner. We don't have other prizes at this point. I will seek some. I do have a few little ideas through Undo Redo Entertainment. Like I said, I run a suite of different projects, so there might be some things that we can do. But if you happen to be watching this and you're interested in sponsoring the event, please reach out to me. We could certainly talk about opportunities. But at this stage, we have the $500 cash. That's all that is confirmed. I'll say this now. You'll get 4 weeks. If you are the winner, you have 4 weeks to... again, can't remember the word. I am struggling with words today, but just to sort that all out. So you'll need to, if you're not from Australia, you'll need to have PayPal. That's the way that I pay internationally. And of course, I will let you know, hey, congratulations, you've won. Send me your details. You've got 4 weeks. Basically, that's just there so that if people slack, I don't have a debt hanging over my head for a long time. I'm sure that makes sense. Now, in terms of dates, we have all of the dates on our website, monologues.com.au/WMFF for World Monologue Film Festival. Link in this description. But let me just run through them now. So we have the early bird deadline of the 20th of January. So it's a little over a month from now. It's about like almost five full weeks from today. So plenty of time if you're thinking about it. And I know we've got the silly season just about to start, but plenty of time to get something in by that deadline. Essentially, the only real benefit of getting in by the earlier deadlines is that they're cheaper. So it's $10 to submit. That's 34 days away. I'd written it down. The normal deadline is the 10th of February. It's $15 for a submission, and the late deadline is the 2nd of March, and that's $25. I know that's a generous time frame between the normal and the late. I would appreciate you targeting the normal deadline and not the late deadline, because we haven't left a great deal of time in between the deadline and the broadcast, and there's a lot to be done with judging and putting the film together and all of that kind of stuff. I see a question that's just come in. I might jump onto that in a second. The notification date is planned for somewhere around the 15th of March. So it will be a short time frame between the deadline being notified and the event itself. We have a screening planned for Wednesday, the 23rd of March. Now, let me say now, there's a very good chance we won't do a physical screening this year because of COVID. With rising cases, it's a real big risk to be booking a physical cinema. Of course, it's a health risk, but it's also a financial risk. If we can't, if we can't run the event, then it's a big hit, and we don't really have a big pool of money to be drawing from. This is just a small festival. It's an independent festival that doesn't get funding from anywhere. It's all self-funded. So don't take my word for that. We'll see what happens, but there's every chance, just in the interest of full disclosure, that screening won't be held, the physical screening. We will 100%, of course, either way, be doing a live stream event, and that it's kind of the main event either way. Like last year, or this year I should say, we did a physical screening, but of course only people in Sydney, Australia can attend, and we have filmmakers from all around the world, and we've got a pretty big global audience from World Monologue Games. So it's we'll have a much greater audience on the live stream event anyway than what we have physically. That date is the 25th, Friday the 25th of March 2022 for the semi-finals, and Saturday the 26th of March for the finals. Now, it's possible, depending on the number of entries, that we might run more events. I'm pretty happy to keep the, to have a little bit of room for flux depending on what happens. So we didn't know how many submissions we'd get last year. It was our first year, and fortunately it all went to plan. We ran a semi-finals and a finals event. But if we get a ton of great submissions, I'm inclined to run multiple events. So just a heads up that there is a chance that some of these things will change depending on what happens. And we should know hopefully by the main deadline about what we're expecting, but definitely by the late deadline. But I'll keep everybody posted about any changes. Let me just have a read of that question. Look, that's a good question. Someone's asked if there's standard permission from royalty-free or attribution-only sources. You have to read those agreements really carefully, though, because sometimes it's for personal use only, and if we broadcast it in a cinema where we charge tickets, because we obviously will charge money for customers to come and view the event, otherwise we lose a lot of money hiring the cinema, it's very expensive, that can sometimes be a problem. So yes, it's okay, but check the attribution, check what that arrangement is, and when you have to submit that through to the festival, we want you to submit the actual details themselves, so we can see that it has the correct attribution. So do be careful. Sometimes those sites look like they're letting you use it for anything, but it's not. It depends on what in their agreements, how they're defining the allowed usages and what they might call commercial uses, etc. So it is better to just go to those totally free sites if you can. But yeah, hopefully that's clear. So look, last year I mentioned during this same live stream info session event that we were sort of planning to put the event, the finals, up on a streaming platform for a very small cost, something like $5. Because it's a way of us as an event recouping some of our costs and being able to put the finals event up on our website, and people can come and chuck us a few dollars and give it a watch. That's still in the terms and conditions, but I don't know. I didn't do it last year, or this year I should say. I keep saying last year. The event's just been on YouTube. So it's just been freely available for anyone. And if you're interested in watching last year's finalist, you can jump on. You find the link through this channel. You can see the World Monologue Film Festival semi-finals and finals from 2021. So I guess what I'm saying is we're reserving the right to do that, to put the finals on a streaming platform, but we may or may not do it. And part of the thinking there as well was, if we leave it public in any way, then that can affect people's abilities to submit to future events, possibly, depending on their rules. But so far, no one ever requested that, there was no issues with leaving it there. So we'll see what happens. Be aware that in the terms and conditions, we might put it on a streaming platform for a small fee, but let's see what we do. If you do have a strong opinion, if you submit and get accepted into the festival, feel free to let me know. Now, judges, we have a panel of industry professionals who have been involved in the film festival last year and World Monologue Games this year. Some really fantastic judges, including somebody who has had a film selected for Cannes. Many, people who are running acting schools and people who have made feature films that have been very successful. We've got a great panel. We do have a web page for these guys, but I'm not sure if there's a direct link from our World Monologue Film Festival homepage. But don't worry if you're on the mailing list or you're submitting. I'll definitely send that information around. We publish it on social media as well. There is a page, just don't know how easy it is to find. Okay, that is that information. So let me talk about submissions now. Someone asked a question about that earlier, so here's a little bit more information. You need to register first via our website if you haven't done so already. I'm assuming most people here have already done that, but you can register on our homepage at any time. Link in the description. When you submit, you need to basically do your submission, and then you'll get redirected to payment. And if you don't pay, you'll get an email following up saying, "Hey, you need to pay before your link is your film is accepted." So just make sure you do that. Again, any problems with the email or the payment, just reach out. But should all be fairly smooth. Once we've had your submission and your payment, then it's considered to be submitted. There is a naming convention for the video that you put on YouTube. So first of all, you just put it on YouTube and submit it, because that's just the easiest way we can distribute it to our judges. Having it on unlisted, not private, definitely not public. Having it on unlisted on YouTube means that no one can see it without the direct link. And then we just put we can submit those or send those through to our judging panel quite easily. If you do get accepted into the festival, we'll ask for a full-sized file transfer. Pretty open with file formats, to be honest, as long as it's something that standard professional editing software can consume and handle, then that's okay. So you can send that through. If you get accepted, you'll get a notification saying, "Please send me your film ASAP," and then you can send that through. If there are any issues with the file format, I will let you know. We do also accept submissions via Film Freeway. The festival happens to be on Film Freeway as well as via our own private website. There's no difference, effectively. You can submit via Film Freeway if you like, but I think it's a little bit more expensive on Film Freeway, just because that's how it is. We have to pay fees to Film Freeway if you submit. So I recommend submitting through our website. It is absolutely the same thing. The process is exactly the same. Or the chances of being accepted are identical, except it's a little bit cheaper through us. So why wouldn't you? I don't know. Guys, please feel free to drop any questions at this point. I'm going to just share a few tips on making a submission and making a film for the World Monologue Film Festival. And then I'll play a couple of our submissions from last year before I say goodbye. So yeah, feel free to send any questions in now while I'm running through these tips, and I can answer them before I play those two videos. So I do recommend jumping on and checking out our finals from last year to get some inspiration, if you'd like, to see obviously not to copy the films, but just to see the kinds of ideas that people have used. I was really blown away by how creative people got. I didn't really know what to expect setting this up, because it is a fairly unique format, but people were really creative. There was some amazing stuff, some really interesting use of form. There's an award, the most innovative film. Now, the best film is the winner. The judge's choice for the best film is the kind of, official winner of the event. But I think the most innovative film award is like the coolest award, because it says that you have done something cleverer and, more unique than anyone else. And last year, we actually awarded that to a 16-year-old South Korean young man who was making his first ever film. It was remarkable. At only 16, never done a film, he won this award. So some creating tips. You can use a phone. It's totally fine. Modern phones are so good. They have such good built-in quality now. Pardon me. the cameras in particular are really great. The microphones are not as good for these phones. They're still pretty good, but they're not quite at cinema broadcast quality. So if anything, you can just plug a small external microphone into a phone. Again, this is designed so that it should be fairly accessible, this event, but we do definitely take into consideration production value. If you've been involved with World Monologue Games, you'd know that we de-emphasize the production value. It's all about the acting. But with this, we do care about production value. So you do need to think about that. Filming in light, in good natural light, is a really good idea if you're using a phone, because those cameras, despite how good they are, they're not great at low light. You typically need a professional camera to be better at low light. And please do landscape and not portrait. Portrait is really, really dicky for a film festival. Unless you're doing something like a found footage film. We did have one last year where it was a woman trapped in an elevator, and that kind of worked, but it was specifically supposed to be filmed on her own phone. So unless you're doing that, I would strongly recommend do film in landscape and not portrait if you're using a phone. I can see a question there. Does it matter how many people are in the film, and does genre matter? Yes, there can only be one person in the film. I assume you're tuning in late because I talked about that earlier on. You can only have one actor in the film, and that includes off-screen, voices and voiceovers and stuff like that. The genre doesn't matter. It's totally up to you. You can totally up to you. What can I say? Your choice. No coronavirus. You just can't talk about coronavirus or lockdowns or the global pandemic because we're all sick of hearing about it. Okay, so if you're using camera gear, you can think about having a team that matches the scale of the project. So something that I've observed, being a filmmaker myself, I didn't mention that when I was talking about my bio. I've made some films and just released some animations as well. Sometimes people start with a short film and they try to build a team that could make a feature film. So they have a lot of personnel, and often there's just way too many of those people. There's people who don't really need to be there. So you've got 5 people all kind of doing a role that one talented person could do, or maybe 2 talented people could do. So just have a think about the scale of this production and think about how many crew do you really need to do this well. And it's not to say that you can't do something with a crew of 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever, but just think about how necessary is it. Because sometimes you'll find that you don't really need like your first AD and your second AD when it's just like one actor only in one shot. Thinking about sound, just a couple of tips here. I'm assuming quite a lot of people watching this pretty seasoned filmmakers, so pardon me giving some more earlier on in the career kind of advice. But we do have all kinds of people getting involved, so I think it's nice just to share some tips like this. Thinking about capturing sound, it can be a bit of a tricky one, particularly when you have to have camera movement. Using a boom mic is still fine. It's just a bit trickier because you have to kind of walk around with it, which of course you can do, but that's harder than just having it static. But thinking about radio mics as well, lapel mics, that kind of thing, they're fine to use, but the positioning of your head matters. So if I turn my head away from the microphone, you might hear that my volume goes down a bit. That is going to happen if you're wearing a lapel mic. Likewise, you don't want to hit it. You get these awful sounds. Just might be something you want to play around with before, if you've got an actor, or if you yourself as a filmmaker are not super experienced with the technical stuff, play around with it a little bit to make sure you get a good capture, because sound is really hard. If you don't capture it well in the first place, it's really hard to do anything about it. So just a couple of just like general tips as well. Think about the choreography. There was some amazing camera choreography, particularly the camera as opposed to the actor. or maybe a bit of both, really. But we kind of had a real mix of films in this year's event. But yeah, think about the choreography. What can you do with the camera? What can you do with positioning that's going to make this interesting? And the first of the two films I'm going to play used camera really, really well. It wasn't the kind of production where they had the best cameras in the world. It was something like you could do it with a decent camera or a modern phone, but the choreography was so good it kind of overrode whatever it not being like a $20,000 broadcast or sort of cinema broadcast or TV broadcast camera. Really, really good choreography. In fact, both of the films I'm going to play had some pretty interesting camera work. The other thing is, although this is a monologue event, think about the storytelling rule of show and don't tell. So people might be tempted to get a monologue script and you have a character talking about something that happened, and then they just film it verbatim with a character describing something that's happened. If you can show, that might be better. I think generally theatre and film both work much better if they're about what's happening in the present rather than being about someone talking about something that didn't happen in the present, if that makes sense. So in theatre, it's quite clear. You've got a scene with two people talking about an event that happened last week. It's better to just show that event. So just have a think about that depending on what your script is. Of course, if you want to make changes and it's not your content, you're going to have to get permission from the content owner. That's just courtesy, if nothing else. But yeah, just a little tip, something to think about. And guys, that's about it. Unless anyone has any questions, what I might do is I'm just going to play those couple of films from last year, and we'll just have one quick opportunity at the end. So if any questions come in, I'll come back in and answer that. Otherwise, I'll say goodbye. So check them out. These are some great little films that we played in World Monologue Film Festival 2021.
It's a strange one, isn't it? Back home, schoolmates, in fact, workmates even now. Half the guys, probably half the girls too. People are too quick to judge. If a man cries, he's a wimp, a pussy, soft, a sissy, a puff. You need to man up, mate. Man up, grow up here. Bro, are you crying? So what if I am? It's okay if a man cries when he holds his newborn child for the first time. But God forbid if he cries because he's stressed about work, or, I don't know, worried about money. Or he's just having one of those days where he wants to get away and forget everything. If I cry, it apparently makes me less of a man. I mean, Superman doesn't cry. James Bond would look weak to the villain if he cried. Right? Do you think the men in the world wars didn't want to cry when they were faced with the choice of going over a trench into enemy gunfire? Or if they didn't, being shot in the back by some power gun-happy general and called a coward to their mum simply because they valued their life too much? Do you think they didn't want to cry? Men cry too. It takes a real man to show his emotions. Next time you want to tell me to man up, go fuck yourself.
6:32 de la tarde, un cielo lindo y despejado. Es el turno de recibir la luz de nuestra queridísima luna. Hoy iniciaremos el programa de una manera diferente. Ayer por la noche recibimos un correo en el cual uno de nuestros seguidores nos pedía de favor que leyéramos un poema que recientemente escribió. Así que decidí iniciar este programa con estos pensamientos. Dice así: me vi escribiendo un guión, como quien cuenta una historia queriéndola eternizar, sorprendido con cada palabra que fluía como ella lo hacía al bailar. Todavía la siento, aunque no es fácil escribir esta vez. Supo quererme, pero, por sobre todo, supo enseñarme a volver a querer. El amor puede hacer mucho daño, y en el fondo siempre es un acto de fe. Al partir me dejó la alegría, unas enseñanzas y la cama vacía. Me deja una pausa incómoda, más una batalla contra mi ira. Sin embargo, lo sé, dos personas pueden haber sido y dejar de ser. Sin embargo, lo entiendo, ella seguirá bailándole a la vida y yo seguiré escribiendo. Confiado de que una ola se aleja porque debe acercarnos a una nueva marea. Tranquilo de que haber pisado fuerte, quizás le deje siempre en el alma una huella. Y si tengo algo de suerte, tal vez sea tan buena como la que a mí me dejó ella.
All right, that was a couple of the finalists from last year. As I said, if you jump onto this channel, which you're already on, you can check out the full World Monologue Film Festival 2021 finals and semi-finals if you'd like to see more of our films and get more inspiration. Folks, thank you very much for joining me. I am really looking forward to seeing your films. It's very exciting to run a thing like this and to just see what amazing creative things people come up with. I was so impressed with 2021, so I'm super pumped about what we're going to get through the door in 2022. That's all from me. Season's greetings. I hope you enjoy the remainder of the year, and I will see you soon. Bye.